Fit Marketing podcast is brought to you by me, Amanda Bear. We'll talk about topics that you don't normally read about in marketing literature that tell you more about the what, but not the how of marketing in the real world. You'll hear great conversations with leaders and up-and-comers who intersect with marketing and have been testing and learning and paving the way every day. Visit futurefitmarketing.com.au for access to resources and past episodes. If you feel like you've reached a level of experience and capability in your role, be it at the executive or C-suite level or as a junior marketer, or maybe you've received positive feedback from team members and leaders on your capabilities, perhaps you've started thinking, it's time to put my hand up for more. The first answer should be absolutely yes. I can do this. Everyone suffers from imposter syndrome throughout their career. Those niggling thoughts and feelings that can hold us back. I have the right experience to go for this role, but I think I can only do 60% of it. Or I don't think I've got the leadership experience or confidence to influence others. And so it goes on. To quiet that voice, the first answer should be yes, I can do this. The next then should be actively putting your hand up and expressing your intentions. The worst that can happen is you get the feedback you're not quite ready. Great! This is an opportunity to take that feedback and develop your skills further. The best that can happen is you get that role, lead that project, and you find an advocate to look out for opportunities now you've articulated your intentions. I speak to Lisa Vitaris, who started humbly and was candid enough to speak about her journey to become now CMO of Amaysim, Australia's fourth largest telecommunications provider. Lisa has worked both in advertising agencies and client-side in senior roles at Tyro, Aussie Home Loans, as well as Hyundai and CMC Markets. Lisa is a graduate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors and a board director of Engineers Australia, and a member of the Marketing Academy's Advisory Council and 2020 alumni. I'm so pleased to introduce Lisa Vitaris to the podcast. Lisa has had a remarkable career in marketing, and she currently holds the role of CMO at Amaysim, as well as a board director role of Engineers Australia and a few other advisory member roles in a number of other organisations. So I'm so pleased to have you on the podcast, Lisa. Welcome.
Thanks, Amanda. I'm so great to be here.
Amazing. So let's get started. Why don't you tell us a bit about your career background and some of your big highlights as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was actually really, really hard to break into advertising, even after a 5-year double degree in public communications and in international studies.
Oh, come on.
It was. It seemed that you had to have experience for every role, but it was virtually impossible to get the experience in the first place. I had hundreds of applications and phone calls. I ended up doing many months of unpaid volunteer work as an account executive for a small advertising agency, predominantly in property. My second job was finally paid, so that was great. But I had to, again, send out hundreds of applications and make hundreds of phone calls. And whilst I got the job, I had to start out again on reception and had a second job in hospitality to make ends meet. So it certainly was not an easy start in advertising. Fortunately, though, once I was in the industry, I was able to progress relatively quickly. I worked across a really large range of industries and predominantly in financial services, automotive and travel. And about 7 years in, I switched over to client side as I was quite frustrated that some of the clients wouldn't share all of their results with me. And I also wanted to be the one who was making all of the strategic decisions. So I muscled my way across into a client side role, which was actually trickier to get than expected. And I was told I wouldn't be able to analyze results as I didn't have the experience doing that.
Wow.
And it was actually an ex-agency side marketer who gave me my first opportunity, knowing how valuable that agency side experience is. It was all up, all on the up since then, though. It was a bit of a rough start, to be honest. But my circa 11 years client side experience then is predominantly in financial services. And I have strong experience in high growth acquisition and brand, having worked on brands such as CMC Markets, Aussie Home Loans, where we brought back their famous "We'll Save You" tagline, and most recently Tyro Payments, where I was able to cost effectively grow their prompted brand awareness from 6% to 20% over a 4-year period. And then in October 2021, I secured, as you mentioned, my first board role with Engineers Australia. And in May last year, I ventured into telco, leading sales and marketing for Amaysim, which is the fourth largest telco in Australia.
What a great history. Rough start, but we all have those. I think as marketers, your an analysis of data and your technical capabilities have had to really, start to come to the fore, right? And I wonder, with your role and even through Tyro, how much has changed? What sort of capabilities are you needing with yourself from a leadership, technical capability, soft skill perspective, as well as what you need from your team? What do you think the modern marketer needs these days?
Yeah, good question. Regarding leadership, I think, look, leadership probably hasn't changed too much, I would say. Clear communication, absolutely critical. Definitely still need to make sure that we're clearly communicating. And the ability to motivate a team towards a North Star, or a BHAG, as many people call it. So that big, hairy, audacious goal, that's really critical. The only thing I would say that's probably changed from a leadership perspective, which I've been really pleased to see, is the increasing emergence of vulnerability as being quite advantageous over the past few years. I really feel like that's been dialed up as something that leaders should have as a means, as a skill set, I would say. In terms of the team, I think it really depends on the role. There's so many different roles in marketing. It can be narrow, it can be broad, often driven by the size or complexity of the business. With technical capabilities, I'd say marketing's definitely become more accountable. So experience with MarTech, analytics, and anything in that space is very important. Soft skills wise, I'd say most of our work at Amaysim anyway is done at a team level. So being able to work effectively as a team is really critical rather than working individually. And problem solving is required on an almost daily basis. So those teamwork, problem solving, and I'd add adaptability to that, just given that the rate of change is a lot higher.
And I noticed that you're trying to recruit for, more roles as well. And so the thinking about how you scale the team and how you scale the business, and also the work that you do cross-functionally with other teams, how has that evolved for you?
Look, I'd just say we're in a really lucky position where we're in a growing industry and we're in a high growth business. So we have hired a lot over the last year. That has taken up a lot of my time. So we hired 17 people, seven of those were new roles across the sales and marketing teams. So that's been I'm actually really proud of what we've managed to do in that space, along with our recruitment team. We are really, really strong on culture at Amaysim. It's one of our real strong points. And to be able to maintain that culture with that much new recruitment, and particularly it's literally about half of our team that is new over the last year. We've managed to maintain the culture and actually make it even better. So I'm really proud of that. In terms of interactions with other teams, obviously there's a bit of work. There's new people quite often. So we just need to make sure that we're really doing a proper job of onboarding our team members and making sure that they get to know everybody and the right people to speak to. I've had to do a fair bit of work in terms of marketing operations as well, just to make sure that there are the right processes in place with all of the new recruits that we have, to make sure that we're able to continue delivering everything that we need to from a sales and marketing team perspective.
Now, you talk about being in a high growth business, and I'm keen to understand what are the problems that, with your scale as well, and new recruits, etc. What are the problems that you're trying to solve today, and how are you tackling them?
Yes, well, two on that, I would say. One is we have so many opportunities at Amaysim. The main challenge is prioritization.
Yes, I hear you.
It's a really exciting challenge to have, I would say. We do, though, have a fantastic company-wide process, which is really inclusive. Anyone in the business can pitch ideas once a quarter, and then our leadership team, so anyone who's reporting into the senior leadership team, and the senior leadership team, we all assess the ideas against our core business metrics to determine the prioritization. And after that, make sure that there's really, really clear communication to the entire business so that we're communicating our top priorities and making sure that we have enough resource to support them. It's probably the best I've seen in terms of a go-to-market process. So I'm really grateful for that. But yes, lots of amazing ideas that come to us every quarter. So it can be quite challenging to choose between them, but a good problem to have, I would say. Recruitment would be the other challenge, obviously, given our high growth rate. So given the number of new recruits that we need to make, as I mentioned, we need to continue ensuring that our culture is protected, as it's one of our really core strengths. We have lots of exciting events and perks that our new employees get blown away with in their first few weeks, and they never want to leave. So that's actually really positive. But there is quite a rigorous process to make sure that we get the right candidates on board.
In terms of some of the problems that you're trying to solve with the business as well, you know, you talk about prioritization on the one hand and sort of culture on the other. Can you expand on a couple of examples of the tension or the opportunities and how you do actually pick and stand up, you know, some of those ideas?
A lot of them would be product related. So there are lots of fantastic ideas of what we can do with our amazing products and features that we offer at Amaysim. I probably can't reveal what they are and what our product roadmap looks like. Yeah. It's safe to say that given that we're a part of Optus, we have a lot of opportunity for really exciting new product and features that we can develop. So the challenge then becomes, well, which of these is going to be the most critical for us to launch? Which of these do our customers need the most? And which of these can we deliver to market the most effectively and with a core difference? We like to make sure that we're not just delivering something that any other telco could provide. We want to make sure that it's got a bit of sparkle dust, as some of us would say at Amaysim.
I love that. You mentioned a lot about sort of product ideas and product features as well. For me, for example, there's always a tension between everything being product-led versus, you know, potential for something else to be a bit more marketing-led or that sparkle dust, right? Which is really important with our kind of jobs. You know, is there anything in your organisation where your team or marketing has really sort of come up with, you know, ideas that the business has really rallied around yet? I realise you've only been quite new to the organisation, but even in Tyro, I'd be keen to understand how your team have pitched, you know, any ideas that have come up that maybe have been rallied around by the business.
Oh, absolutely. Look, marketers are never short of ideas.
Yes.
I think the really good thing at Amaysim is the product team, or the commercial team, I should say. It's much broader than just product, and the sales and marketing team work incredibly closely together. Our whole business at Amaysim is under 100 people, which is quite remarkable.
Wow.
To think about, given that we're the fourth largest telco in Australia. So it is actually relatively easy, I would say, for us to remain really close and in touch and in tune with each other's departments. So myself and my team regularly have ideas. My sales team look after Coles and Woolies relationships, and often they will be the ones who are proposing what products that we need in those particular retail sales channels. So we just work incredibly closely with the commercial team to determine what's feasible and what we can actually produce. And obviously they will work with the tech teams as well to make sure that they can actually be produced in the right timeframes. So yes, we're constantly rallying. We do a lot of work together on the customer research front as well. So our teams will collaborate and will determine, well, what is it that we need to research? What are the customer pain points? And how do we collectively address them across the sales and marketing and commercial teams, which is, it's been a fantastic process.
Now, I'm going to switch things up a little bit, and I want to dig into you a little bit more and your journey. If you reflect back on your time at Tyro, and then you're thinking that perhaps you want to switch things up a little bit, that there might be something more that you want to give, like applying for a board role, trying something new. What did that look like for you? And what sort of, what was going through your head? What sort of things did you have to do to make that change happen?
I was really, really happy at Tyro for the 5 years that I was there. There was a lot that was challenging in my role. So I was very engaged. There were lots of opportunities. What actually happened whilst I was at Tyro was I was given a fantastic opportunity to join the Marketing Academy, which is a not-for-profit organisation all about leadership and obviously by the title aimed at marketers, but also media and agency creatives as well. Mm-hmm. In that process, it really gave me a bit of a jolt. So whilst I was really excited by my career and fully focused on my executive role, the Marketing Academy and all of the executive coaching and 8 mentors that I had. Can you imagine that? You get 8 mentors. It's incredible. Thank you to all my mentors, by the way, if any are listening. They were fantastic. So many CMOs and CEOs of businesses. It really, like I said, it just really gave me a jolt. It made me think, okay, this is great. You're doing well, but what's next? What else can you do? What are the possibilities? Where do you want to go? And one of the ideas that I floated was with one of my mentors. Actually, I floated it with most of the mentors because it's good to have 8. You can just ask them the same thing and get 8 different perspectives, which is I'm just so privileged to have had that opportunity. I floated it with one of them, and it was Belinda Rowe, actually. And she said to me, well, yes, that's great that you want to have a board role, but why would you don't wait until you're in your 50s, do it now. Why wouldn't you just apply now? Mm-hmm. And of course, imposter syndrome is very prevalent when you start to think about, a board role. Okay, my first board role. Wow. Mm-hmm. I would have thought that would be, quite a while away. Let me just think about bringing that forward. It is quite daunting. Mm-hmm. She broke it down for me and she said, look, at the end of the day, you can do it. You can definitely do it. Boards want people with different opinions. They want people of different ages. They want people of different genders. They would likely want your marketing experience and your digital technology experience. So why don't you just give it a go? And at the same time, you should probably join Women on Boards. So I joined Women on Boards. I signed up to that. I stalked their job board for quite a long time. And just found an amazing opportunity and went for it. So it was definitely the Marketing Academy, thanks to them and thanks to the mentors and the executive coach that I had there that woke me up, I would say.
You touched on imposter syndrome. How are you feeling now? You've got a great job at Amaysim. You've got this board role. How are you feeling now?
Oh, I definitely question myself regularly. Definitely more confident than I used to be. And I think that just builds over time. But I would be lying to say I feel like I'm nailing it all of the time. I've been in my board role for over 1.5 years. So it still is very much a learning curve for me. But I've had the most fantastic support on that board and with coaching as well. So that has definitely helped to reduce a lot of the imposter syndrome. But it does take time to learn new things. And I think you just need to be easy on yourself if you are potentially making a mistake or putting your foot in your mouth or saying something when you probably shouldn't have. But these things happen, and I think they're just normal. It's just being kind to yourself afterwards rather than beating yourself up for too long.
That's such great advice, the being kind to yourself. And to be honest, hearing you've just given it a go, right? And so I think a lot of that also comes with experience and saying, I feel okay putting myself forward and I'm going to be kind to myself. And, the two that kind of sit side by side, I think that's really lovely advice. Is there anything else that you would add in terms of overcoming imposter syndrome?
Look, I think one of the pieces of advice that I always give people, and it's because I've taken this advice myself, is to just put your hand up. So I've done that multiple times in my career. I did that at Tyro with the CMO role when that became available. I essentially put my hand up and said, I'm ready for this. I want to take this role. And I was able to get that role. It obviously wasn't that simple as just putting my hand up, by the way, but
of course,
essentially forcing myself to do that when I thought, I'm not sure if I can definitely do this. Maybe I'm at, 60, 70%, but I'm going to give it a crack. I think a lot of the time women wait until they're 80, 90% sure, and then they might miss out on some of the opportunities. Same thing with the board role. I put my hand up. I put a board CV and a board cover letter together after I Googled how to do it.
Love it.
Really, I did, because I didn't know. I couldn't find examples, or there were very few and far between examples. So, and then I ended up getting the role. So I think, you just need to kind of lean towards whatever it is that you want to make happen and just go for it. Deal with the consequences later.
That's great advice. Now, talk to me about the board role going into Engineer Australia. It's an industry with a lot of jargon. You hadn't had experience in that before, and you're a marketer. And look, I think boards are now starting to get a lot more marketers on. Obviously, female is a strong lean, but the diversity is important, as well as the different voices from, different career backgrounds and things like that. Can you talk about the leadership qualities that you had and the experience you've got in marketing that's benefiting the role, and talk to how you're making a difference?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have to say, the day that I found the job listing for Engineers Australia, for the board director role in Engineers Australia on the Women on Boards job board, I honestly couldn't have found a better job that was more relevant to me. I stopped in my tracks, essentially. So the job ad said that they were looking for someone who wasn't an engineer, tick, who they didn't have to have had a board role before, so new to board roles, tick, that had marketing experience, tick, and digital technology experience, also tick. So when I read that job ad, I honestly stopped in my tracks and thought, that sounds exactly like me. This is my calling. I need to apply. Not sure if I'll be able to do it, but let me give it a crack. Let me put my hand up, and then ended up getting the role. I think the fantastic thing about being on the Engineers Australia board is that everyone else is an engineer, and they really, really wanted a marketer to provide a completely different point of view. So I'm not an engineer. I don't understand a lot of the jargon. I am learning a lot of the jargon, but that's the whole point. And I see things from a different perspective. I'm able to add value that they might not be able to see being a part of the industry. So it's a completely different point of view. I have since done my AICD board directors course, which was incredibly valuable as well. So that has definitely given me some pretty solid foundations in risk and strategy and finance and legal and governance and all the other skills that you need to have on a board. And then a lot of the rest has just been learning as I go. But yeah, it's been such an amazing opportunity. And it really just that job ad was incredible.
So you've had the board seat now, and obviously you've gone through the AICD course as well. From your perspective, what's missing with your voice at the table?
Look, I'd say I've learnt a lot over the last year and a half. I have definitely learned to speak up. That's one of the first things that you learn. So to speak up, and even if you're not sure whether you should be saying something, actually, particularly if you're not sure that you should be saying something, you should definitely speak up.
Wow.
I've learned a lot from our chair, from our fellow board members about how to raise potentially trickier matters and so on. So I'd say that it's been a hugely steep learning curve within that first year and a half. I'd say the other thing that I have learned is a great deal by being on the Audit and Risk Committee and the People and Culture Committee. That's a fantastic learning ground for people whose first board role it is. It just helps in so many different ways. Look, I mean, I would be lying if I said there wasn't much more to learn, but a lot of that learning is really just by actually being on the board, by observation, by learning from others, by constantly asking for feedback and saying, hey, when I said this, how did that come across? Was that not the right way of saying it? How could I have phrased it better? And just constantly questioning, meetings that you've had and trying to make them better.
I love that you are asking for 360 feedback. And I think a lot of that comes with experience and maturity and sort of EQ as well, right? So I think that's really good advice. And, if we're talking about advice, we have a raft of different listeners, from junior people to more senior people listening to the podcast. If someone was to put their hand up for a board role, to head up a committee, or to even head up a small project or something like that, is there any advice that you would give? Take that first step, and then, what to think about, how to approach that role as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Just do it. What's stopping you from doing it? Do it right now. And take any opportunity you can get. Put your hand up, make it known to others. I think if you let other people know that your goal is to get on a board, or your goal is to lead a project or be on an advisory committee because you want to get on a board role someday, then other people will do what they can to help you. So definitely just go for it. I'd say for under 40s, anyone under 40, there's a fantastic program called the Observership, and it gives people firsthand exposure to not-for-profit boards. Mm-hmm. So that is another way of getting insight into boards and getting on your way. But yeah, I'd just say just go for it. You can definitely do it. You'd have the skill sets that are required. They would be very grateful, I am sure, for the experience that you could bring, and the diversity of age, the diversity of gender, the diversity of thinking. So just give it a go. I would say definitely try to upskill on governance. Mm-hmm. Governance is something that is really important to understand. You can Google that, as I did, or you could do the AICD course, which is a bit more intensive, but getting across that would be incredibly helpful.
Last question for you, as this podcast is about being future fit, particularly in marketing. Is there any resources or tips that you have personally that you keep yourself future fit on?
Look, I'm a big believer in balance, as strange as it sounds, with my executive career and my full-time board role and a few other advisory roles. So I'm incredibly motivated in my career, but I do have other passions as well, such as rock climbing and travel.
Wow.
And I try to make sure that I make enough time for them, as well as my family and friends, of course. And I've actually taken 2 career breaks in my life. And at the time I thought that would set me back, but in hindsight, it was the best decision I could have made, as I was able to recharge and reset. So balance is incredibly important too, with all of the being driven about careers. Make sure that you take some time out to do what you love. Look, the only other thing I'd say is just the point about putting your hand up. Just make sure you put your hand up, even if you're maybe 50, 60% sure. That's when some of the most amazing opportunities actually come through to you, and you'll be surprised at what you can actually achieve. And if you don't achieve, it actually doesn't even matter. You can just put it down to a learning experience.
Thank you, Lisa. That was great. It's great to have you on the podcast. Really appreciate your advice. Thank you for jumping on.
Thanks so much for having me, Amanda. Appreciate it.
If you've enjoyed what you've heard, share this podcast series with someone else. And thanks for paying it forward.